I think there's a lot of foolish people buying pre-construction in a speculative nature, and I think it's poisonous to our industry.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
We're recording. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tom Storey Show, your weekly real estate roundup podcast. If you're checking us out every single week and you have not already, make sure to subscribe and throw us a like on this video if you enjoy anything that we said. Even if you like something that Steve said, you can still click the like button. If you're listening on the audio platforms, I hope you are having a wonderful day. This episode is sponsored by Realty Ninja. If you're in the real estate industry and you need a kick-ass website at an affordable fee that looks really good, I would highly recommend checking them out, and you'll learn more about them later in the show. Today's guest is someone who we love. Someone who probably actually should have been on this show way before you've been on. But we wanted to prove to you, Ravi, that we could build something that was worth coming on. Ravi Singh has joined the show. Ravi is one of the good ones. I can say that with all honesty. Ravi is with Remax Hallmark with the Connexus Group out of Toronto, Durham, Scarborough. You're everywhere, Ravi. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate the invite. And, you know, I was waiting till you guys got to 10,000 subscribers. And then I said, okay, well, then maybe it's worth my time too, right? all kidding aside, nothing but respect and love for both of you guys. And I appreciate you having me today.
So, Rav, for the people that don't know you or being introduced to you for the first time, obviously, you know, we all are classified as what we do for a living. We're real estate agents, but, you know, you're a little bit more than that. But can you give us kind of like the 1 minute breakdown on like who is Ravi?
Yeah, so born and raised in Toronto, Canada, around 25. So the ripe old age of 25, I got my real estate license. I've been selling now for 18, 19 years. Prior to that, I was in the nightlife industry. I'm trained as a classical musician. I started building a team after, well, I'd say in 2010. We have 7 agents on our team now, 2 admin. We focus on the downtown core and the east end of the GTA. Those I would say is probably where about 80 to 85% of our business is each year. Other than that, you know, life is something where I'm on this constant pursuit of growth and joy. And I try and make sure that my time is qualified by how does it serve those 2 metrics. Right. I think that sometimes we get too caught up in the nitty gritty of, am I successful? And for me, I've had this sort of life journey where I've realized, what ladder are you on is the first question that you need to ask yourself to really know whether or not you're quote unquote succeeding.
Do you have any advice for Steve to find more joy in his life? Anything he could do?
Do you want the PG or the non-PG version of that? Because, you know, for the listeners who don't know, this got a little weird before we clicked on record. So
maybe we'll stick to the PG version. Well, hey, Steve got back from Disney a few weeks ago, and he's a happy guy. So we'll let him have his moment of joy. All right.
Are you saying I'm not joyous, Tom Storey?
No, you just don't exude joy. Like I speak with Ravi. I speak with Ravi and I walk away and I feel energized. And I speak with Steve and I and I feel, oh, that was tough, you know, God, here we go. All right, Rav. So this is a market-based podcast. We're just trying to talk about what we're actually seeing. And I love speaking with people that are actually active in the market. You are one of the most active people in the GTA market. End of last year, I think it's pretty fair to say for everybody, like the market was slow. It was not a lot was happening. We all know it was a 20-year low in sales volume for the Toronto Real Estate Board. You know, now that we're into 2024, not quite at the spring market yet, but we're building to it. What are you seeing on the ground level? What are people doing?
Yeah, so recently Toronto Star just interviewed me for this topic, and the hockey stick recovery that we were worried / anticipating has happened, Tom. I mean, we have this strange coupling of sellers not quite ready to hit the market and buyers with pent-up demand. In addition to that, there's been this theory where buyers are saying, let me outsmart or outpace the market by getting in before the interest rate drop. But guess what? If all the buyers are doing that,
Right.
they're screwing themselves. So, a lot of people who have been waiting for the bottom are looking in the rearview mirror and saying, oh, it's a lot. I'm surprised that sold for what it did. And I don't know if that will sustain as inventory hits. But right now, tight inventory, pent up buyer demand, and buyers trying to time the market and realizing that they're all moving like a herd of sheep at the same time. So I'm thankful. I'm mindful that what we're seeing could level off a little, but it's extreme seller market territory.
So let's break it down into the different categories. So when we're talking about that, freehold properties, detached, semis, townhouses, things like that, that is still very much in seller market territory. So I think that's pretty clear. When we go down to the next section, we talk about condos. Not quite, but like, are you finding, are things getting a little bit better in that space as well, or is it still pretty slow for you?
It's really interesting. I was meaning to ask you about your 55 Stewart because we just did a 955 Queen, similar price point. And with condos, I always say that there's really two markets. There's the weird condo landlord, strange layout type product. And then there's the home that someone's going to live in and do their Zoom from and work from home and, maybe have space to cook, right? So I think when we look at the condo market, the condo landlords are very much out of the market. What I'm seeing at least is a lot of them don't want the interest rate, the tenant profile, the landlord tenant board, and the other headaches. They want the equity, but they're waiting right now. And then things like 10.5% property tax increase, special assessments due to COVID, refurbing, all these things are just making it less desirable over time. But the people who were renting and want to buy a condo, they're starting to do that more, right? And that doesn't necessarily financially make a lot of sense yet, but I think people are doing that more than they were. Right.
Because if you're renting right now for $2,500 a month, and let's say you're in a building that's under rent control, and maybe you didn't get like pandemic rent, but it was like, I don't know, 21, 22 rent or something, right? So it's not too far off market value. If you had your down payment and you bought that same property right now, it probably is going to cost you a minimum $1,500 more a month to own that piece of real estate versus rent it. And that's a tough mindset shift. Are you finding anyone, like any of the people that you helped get into the market as renters that are becoming those first-time home buyers now saying like, I know this sucks, but I want to own something?
We are. So what we're finding is that the monthly differential is significant, but not significant enough to stop people right now. And a lot of landlords that are selling their properties, their tenants are now saying, well, hang on a sec. Are we going to go rent again for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Or is now the time to start looking at home ownership? Right. And that is really pushing some of these people from tenancy into ownership just from a sheer motivation on the seller side, on the landlord side. So I think there's a lot of nuance to the market. I think specialization, knowing the condo market. I mean, you're a practitioner, I'm a practitioner. It's not our be all and end all, but there's a lot of specifics and there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of detail to what's happening. Not just an aggregate, not just a headline, but how are things actually happening on the front line and specifically building to building, case by case.
I just had a circumstance. So we listed 2 condos that were very similar square footage. But one of them had a real bedroom door that you could close, and one of them had like a junior 1-bed style, but identical square footage. Okay. And I would argue, without giving away exactly where they were in the city, the one that didn't have the bedroom door, but was was in a better building in a better location that should sell for a premium. And then this other one, which was in an okay area, we got 2 offers on it in 3 days and sold for asking price. And then this other one I'm talking about. So there seems to be this weird thing where like the bachelor units are having issues right now, selling. The 1-beds and 1+beds are doing okay, and the 2-beds depending on the inventory. But Steve, are you seeing the same thing in your market? Because
but wait, and then detached is off the chain again?
Well, it's picking up. Yeah, absolutely. Well, compared to the end of last year, I would say, right, Ravi?
Yeah, detached is interesting because again, there's the 905 and 416 markets. So when you go into the 905 or when you go into the outskirts, it's not as hot as it is. There's never been a market correction at, Bayview and York Mills, right? There's just no inventory. But the 905 had really fallen off, and now we're seeing as many as 20, 30 offers on a property.
And I feel like that's the only place that's happening though for freehold. Like the Toronto houses are getting 5 offers maybe. We're not seeing those crazy digit numbers. That's mostly 905. Are you
Yeah.
seeing that as well?
Yeah, it's strange. Like it's almost catching the sales agents off guard too.
Yeah.
Like people are asking a seasoned agent, "Hey, how much is it going to sell for?" And they're saying, "Well, it should fetch 1-1, 1-2," and then all of a sudden it's 1-3-5 and 20 offers. So I don't think that's sustainable, Tom. I think that that's a blip where people are uh, jumping on purchasing, and sellers have not prepped and listed their homes yet.
Isn't it amazing though that could even happen with the Bank of Canada overnight rate at 5% and the fixed rates in the 5s and the variable in the high 6s? I guess still, even with rates at that level, if inventory is low enough and there's enough demand, I'm just shocked that's even happening. I didn't think that was. Did you think that was going to happen this early this year?
No.
No.
You know what? I anticipated a recovery and I thought it was going to come fast and furious, but this is strange. I think we have two things in the real estate market in Toronto that don't necessarily make sense all the time, but it's FOMO, fear of missing out,
Yeah.
and it's herd mentality, right? Where it's just whatever people are hearing, they're just all moving at the same time.
Or there's just people that spend their entire life trying to time the market perfectly, and
Nobody does that, Tom. Everybody just moves when they need a time to move. Nobody tries to time the market.
Okay, the people that try to time the market never make
do that.
Never make the purchase. They're always waiting. They're always
waiting for the 30% crash. But okay, so if we're in this weird spot now where like we're not experiencing that, we're experiencing busy, but we're not experiencing crazy busy, at least not yet. We did see a few that went into 10 or more offers, but not anything nuts like 30 offers. If this is happening now and the market is busy, and finally here we're starting to see some inventory come on, but we're only up 10% from the beginning of the year. Like it's not crazy amounts. If these crazy people at CIBC are correct and we see overnight rate come down to 3.75% by the end of the year,
what happens?
What goes on?
Good question. And it's almost alarming to think about where this could go. Right? And by the way, nobody was buying in December when we were all saying, now's the time to jump.
I know.
Right? But nobody was listening. Right? So I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I think the fundamentals of our market, and everybody, either regurgitates this all the time or says why this doesn't make sense. But the fundamentals are more people than homes. Period.
Or affordable homes, even like what those people can actually buy. Right? There's not enough. Yeah.
Like Tom, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm starting to talk to people about co-buying their first home to just get on the equity ladder and then sell that by the time they want to move into something. Right? Like there's all these people that are just being moved out of affordability.
Two of my best friends co-bought. I helped them purchase a St. Lawrence Market condo. This was 2014 or something. And they sold it 5 years later and each made about 150 grand. Not saying that's going to happen in the market moving forward. Who the hell knows? Now they had a trust agreement in place and they knew each other from childhood and it wasn't some random stranger. But do you know Develle Morrison? She was on the podcast a few weeks ago, great agent in Toronto. She was talking about how like she's co-buying investment properties. And I was like, well, can first time home buyers do that too? is it risk? Like, have you actually seen clients do that? And like, I've had one example I can say for certain I know worked, but it was also it was just really good timing in the condo market. But even if it didn't go up in value, they still would have paid down some equity and owned where they lived, right?
Yeah, we've done that personally. So I own 3 properties with partners. I'm also involved in a syndication and a restaurant with partners. And I think the idea of wealth generation, one of the things that they preach is diversification. So I always say I'd rather own 25% of 10 doors than own, let me see if I can do the math here, 2.5 doors myself, right? So
Understood.
I think people always beat that idea up, and there is the risk. There's risk involved everywhere, but the risk can get managed by proper conversations and proper paperwork and proper navigation at the start, right? So, even one of the condos that I bought pre-construction that's closing this year, it just so happens that I'm not so close to the person that I bought it with anymore, one of the partners, but it's business. Look, we're closing. What do you want to do? What's the next step? Okay, let's move forward. Right. And
So
I think that
can you close on that? Are
proven.
you going to close on that? Are they still interested, or is that why you're not so close with them anymore? Are you guys fighting? Like, what happens when these people are going into these relationships together? Like, I can't imagine that all of the relationships you have with different investors, if it's not the same person, can go so smoothly. Because that's what I worry about when you talk about, for instance, co-buying. I looked at it when I was really young, when I was trying to get from a condo to a detached. And we looked at buying a coach home. So that's 3 units. And it just didn't make sense. Like, I was like, am I really going to be tied to? I don't even talk to that person anymore.
Mhm.
How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So far, so good in terms of what we've done. Some hiccups along the way, but I think generally speaking, the first thing that you have to establish is an understanding of how much each person owns. The second thing is, what does the exit look like? Right? Because if you have different motives, the entire thing could backfire.
Yeah. That one that you bought, that pre-con a few years ago, if I had to take a wild guess, it's maybe not worth what you paid for it if you're closing on it this year.
Hey agents, a clean and easy to manage real estate website is a must. Go to realtyninja.com/Tom right now and start your site totally for free and pay nothing until you launch. And then when it is your time to go live, you will save 20% off of your entire first year just for signing up at realtyninja.com/Tom.
Just based on what things were selling for then. There's quite a few people in that situation. Is this always a long-term hold for you? I know you bought this one with investors, but when you close on that at today's mortgage rates, like, not that we want to play doom and gloom here, but like, let's at least acknowledge what situation some people are in. Like, how negative were you going to be on that thing if you rent it out?
I think we're on par or slightly above what we paid for it.
Okay.
We paid about 553, and I think it's probably worth about 575.
Okay.
You know,
All right. That's good.
yeah, it sucks, but it's okay. You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
better than a lot of situations out there.
yeah, after we close and cover our cap levies and our land
Right.
transfer tax, and everybody takes a little bit of money out, the thought would be we'll rent it out until we feel like selling, but we do want to sell. We'll probably sell somewhere in the 2026 to 2029 horizon.
Mhm.
And at that time, some principal would be paid down. Prices hopefully have caught up.
Mhm.
It's a premier location. Like, it's right by the well. It's right by TIFF. It's right by
Okay.
Nobu. It's right by everything. So my thought is, look, no real estate is bad real estate, but some real estate is better than others. And this one, we bought it about 1150 a foot, and if
Okay.
we end up
That's not
selling it,
so bad. That's not so bad. I thought it'd be like 1400 or something. So,
yeah, you know what? I believe in that community of Blue Jays Way and King and Spadina.
yeah.
I own a restaurant at King and Brant, and I'm seeing the wealth migrate into that pocket. And Big on King and Kingly and all these ones that are at Forma, like they're all hitting 2,000, right? So it was expensive when we bought, and it's now kind of where things are at.
But when you close on it and then rent it out, you know, I'm guessing this is a 450-ish square foot junior one bed or something. You're probably gonna get 2,400 in rent, maybe.
Yeah, somewhere thereabouts, maybe
And you
20.
think the cost to own it will be like $4,000? You think when you close on it with the rates today?
Likely, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So the income, monthly income and cash flow scenario on these condo landlords is really, really poor. And by the way, we've got clients, probably both of us, that bought with the plan to rent out long term and are just getting nailed. I've got a guy at Wonderloft that he's running a deficit of about 2,500 a month. So it's like,
Yeah.
why? Right.
I've got a client in that building too. I didn't help him buy it, but I met him after the fact, sold his house, sold his other loft. And when he closed on that, he's like, just sell this thing. I'm like, man, I can't in good conscience tell you to sell this right now. We got to hang tight. Let's rent it out. Let's see what happens here, because you just
at a deficit of that much.
A good chunk. He would have lost some money. Yeah, definitely. Not six digits, but like money. What's that?
He's losing money every month though.
Right, but if you're losing $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. Do you think it's going to go up in value $24,000 in the next? I don't know. But that's better than taking the big loss and losing $80,000 on your purchase price and land transfer and everything, and especially if you don't have to. But there's some people that are stuck. So going back to this question, we went on a bit of a tangent here, but we started saying, okay, detached freehold housing is pretty hot. Condos are, well, depends on the asset, depends what it is. It's certainly better than it was at the end of last year, and things are starting to move again. And then we got to go to the stuff that doesn't make it to the market, which is the pre-construction market. Is it like, are projects launching? Are you excited about anything? Are people doing things?
I think, and you know what, I hope that this hits social media and the online world. I think there's a lot of foolish people buying pre-construction in a speculative nature, and I think it's poisonous to our industry. The asterisk to that is there's some great pre-construction inventory, and you can buy something and hold on to it for 25 years and pay it off, and use it as your pied a terre in the city, et cetera, et cetera. But there's just poor investment choices being made because of really shiny pitches. You know what I mean, Tom? And it's like, okay, like
that's my beef with it too. We're on the same page.
Like here's the thing: when the resale value is roughly around, let's just say, $1,100 a foot.
Sure.
And the pre-construction launch is, let's just say, 180% of that number. Why are you buying that? Because you're deferring your mortgage and deposits? Okay. What else? I don't know, right?
But why are they buying it is the right question. What makes someone so maybe detached from what the real market is doing where you could buy right now? Like, it must just be speculation in hoping that it's worth more and not having to pay for it now, which I don't think is a very good strategy, never have. But like, if you really want to be an investor, you can go buy something, like you say, right now at under $1,000 a square foot and put a tenant in and become a legitimate investor as opposed to a shiny object presale.
Here's Ravi's 3-second guide to pre-construction. Number 1, price. Number 2, location. Number 3, change to the lay of the land. So when you were buying pre-construction at, 75 Portland, which is in the King West neighborhood, nothing was there. It was kind of divey. It was like on the other side of Bathurst. Now you've got the hottest restaurants. You've got the hottest, nightlife. You've got all these amenities and local walkability, right? If you're buying something just because, Johnny Versace did the lobby, that's not enough, right? That's not enough, right? It's got to be more. right? Go when Brad Lamb was saying to go buy in EO1, which is Leslieville, Riverdale, Queen East, nothing was there, right? So go find something like that. For me, I'm very excited about, for example, some of the resort properties that I'm working on with RevShare at Blue Mountain and Horseshoe, and I bought at Muskoka Bay Resort. I like lifestyle assets where they serve more than just an income story. I'm also interested in real blue chip real estate. What I mean by that is something exceptionally scarce. Scarcity value is the other part of pre-construction. It's like, okay, what are you buying here that cannot be duplicated? Right? And there's not that much of that out there.
Well, there's a lot of condos on the market right now, or leftover inventory from buildings that have been completed. And now most of them are the 3 bedrooms because they're the hardest ones to sell. But they're selling some of these like brand new buildings in solid locations. You can pick up from the developer still a 3 bedroom. Now, the problem is even if it's $900 a square foot, it's still $1 million. That's the problem with all this. But you're literally buying it cheaper than they could rebuild it right now. And at some point in time, that will pay off. When, I don't know. But at some point in time, and Steve, to go back to what you said about like, why are they buying it? Because, I've been actively kind of not telling people not to buy pre-con, but like I think they don't do their research. Ravi said it. They get attracted to the shiny thing. They're like the bug going to the light because it's or there are some really good, hardworking people that don't know any different, and they walk into a presentation center, and bless the people that work there, but just so we understand, they work for the developer. And they're going to sell them on the thing for the person that they are employed from, and they're not going to tell them that the one across the street sells for 30% less. That's not a conversation that's going to come up. And I think all of that plays in. And then there are just like some people that I'm buying for my kids. My kids 14. I don't care if I pay more. I don't want to deal with it right now. I'll deal with it later. I have money. I can close on it. Or I just want new things, right? Like, am I missing anything there, Ravi, that would be the reason behind why people are doing it?
There's one more thing. Passive equity, right? So you're literally writing 4 checks and you're waiting until the building closes. And you know what? Historically, pre-construction has performed quite well, but historically, so has the market. And I'll tell you, I was telling my people to buy pre-construction in 2008, 2017, 2020, and perhaps now. All right? The people who bought in 2021, 2011, or 2018, and by the way, those 2018s are closing now. They haven't made the money that people bought at the right time. When no one is going to the sales center, Tom, when the sales reps start calling you, and
which is happening now,
that's the time, right?
And my unsubscribe finger is getting tired from all those emails right now. Let me tell you.
Oh, you guys need us now, do you? You guys didn't care about us.
Isn't it amazing? You can't get an appointment in the hot times, but now you can get a lunch, and in Vancouver you can get a Porsche.
Right.
They're giving you a Porsche. Literally, there's a building giving away. You buy a condo, you get, and it's not just a Porsche baseline. It's a GT3. It's $185,000 car.
Oh my god!
That comes with this pre-sale downtown. Yeah, it's crazy.
Ravi, did you see? I think every realtor in Toronto got this email, but it was maybe a few weeks ago, and it was 7.5% commission to bring your buyer to this one. I honestly didn't even look at what the I just saw it and laughed. I was like, why don't you just lower the price? And people will maybe
4% overpriced is what you're saying?
Well, right. It's like, stop. Listen, we're realtors. We make a living, but like, even I'm like, guys, like that's ridiculous. Why don't you just lower the price and people will buy it? You don't have to incentivize us more. Why don't you help the consumer?
And just to be clear on my position, I'm not as hard on this as maybe Tom and Steve, but look, buy resale. And if you don't want to buy resale, then look at pre-con, right? If you're got money to stash somewhere, right? Like I don't think it's horrible, but I think a lot of it's overpriced. I think a lot of it's really poorly laid out. And I think the latest flavor is the Starchitect and the celebrity designer, and the like for a while there it was materials. Now it's who the collab is with, right? And it's we're moving into this. We're not doing anything different than I was looking at the Miami presale market, and it's very similar. Bentley residences, Cipriani
There was like
residences.
Diesel. Do you see Diesel has their own condo they're building?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know one of the
but
people involved in that. Yeah.
but one of the ones that was kind of cool in Miami is there's this nightclub, ultra club, strip club. I don't know what it is, but it's called 11. And the guys from 11, they have the 11 residences. Think of it like you own a plaza and you got site plan approved to build 2 towers, but they're building a village, right? What I mean by that is they're going to build retail, restaurant, hospitality, office, et cetera, right? So I like when the lay of the land changes, and that is happening.
And for you though, right now, personally, we'll just stay on Pre-Con for another minute. Is there anything exciting you now? Is the resort type style? Is Freed building all those ones out there? Is that who's building it?
Yeah, so I really like what he's done. I think he's like a Steve Jobs when it comes to aesthetic and sort of construction. I think a lot of people have followed his lead on this stuff. But yeah, he purchased the Skyline Resort portfolio,
Okay.
and that included the foot of Blue Mountain, Horseshoe, Deerhurst. And what he did is he got site plan approved to build over the next 10 years, several condo buildings and low-rise homes as well. What I love about this is he's saying, look at Mykonos, look at south of France, look at South Florida, and you got these beautiful spaces to vacation in these beautiful settings. Then you go to Muskoka or you go to Collingwood and you got these beautiful landscapes and you got the Holiday Inn, right? Or you got Hojo's, and it's like let's get rid of the carpet and the felt and let's make it pretty, right? I was in somewhere far. I was traveling India. I was in India, and they said, "Oh, you're from Canada. Have you ever been to Muskoka?"
Really?
And I was like, "Actually, I own a place in Muskoka." They're like, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful there." Right? So think about how beautiful this land is, and then how the hotel and hospitality and resort communities fall flat. I think if we could elevate that, we're going to really capture a lot of people wanting to head up there.
I guess it's also, although these projects I'm sure are not cheap, it's like, well, what's the alternative? Buying a $4 million cottage on Lake Joe or Rosso, or can you get into one of these sub $1 million and at least it gets you into the area, right? And that didn't exist before. So I guess you could look at it that way.
And with pre-construction, I like to ask my clients, do you know what the disparity is between the freehold and the condo pricing in the area, right? Like when the average cost of a house in Pickering is $1 million, then let's look at $500,000 condos in Pickering. Right.
But these are places being built for the purpose of vacation and then short-term rental.
So the ones in the resort communities, they are fully managed, basically, rev share model homes. And for me, and a lot of my clients, it's a lifestyle asset where you head up, you use it when you want, play some golf, go in the pool, check out the lake, and when you're not using it, they send you a check.
It goes into a rental pool. Yeah. Okay. So they did this. They had this type of plan set up, high rises, I believe, in downtown Kelowna, in a beautiful spot, all set up similar manner, sold like hotcakes. I had clients phoning me, getting to, writing deals. I'm like, I'm not writing a deal in Kelowna. I'm calling up my contacts there. And now, none of these are built. This was probably within the last year and a half. They put out the pre-sale. The city of Kelowna just kiboshed the whole thing for short-term rentals. So all these people have bought what was going to be exactly what you're describing, and no more short-term rentals in Kelowna, period. So it really puts a damp. Now, Whistler still seems to be avoiding it. Maybe that's because it's bigger dollars or something like that.
I mean, Muskoka's kind of our Whistler. I feel like they'd be left off the list.
Muskoka, but what about the other areas, right? Like, I don't know. It's such a risky getting involved in that, because I think maybe there's a different way there being, because you still have timeshare properties, which is also different, right? Like there are places that I think are a great service where they're exactly what you're talking about. I can think of one in Whistler that's actually quite affordable that I have looked at myself because I think they're great, but they're basically like buying into your hotel room. Right.
Yeah.
So I think those would actually be great options, because let me just tell you, I did stay in a hojo a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was a hojo.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to go on these affordable quote unquote vacations, and then you have to spend $700 a night in those places, it does make you think like, hey,
Well, it's nice to have options at least. It's not just one or the other. It's having options.
It would be nice to have options, and it would be nice to have a place where I could go, like Tom, where I look like when you go to your cottage, quote unquote cottage. It would be nice to have an option of where I could go to do that type of rest and relaxation and finding peace and all the wonderful stuff that comes along with that, without having to pay $700 to a okay hotel chain. Would be great.
Well, Ravi, is there? I don't really spend much time in Muskoka. Is there a bunch of hotels up there already, or no? Like, is there any options for people to stay other than short-term rentals?
Where we are, which is Gravenhurst, there's borderline nothing.
Right.
And it's really like underserviced. Yeah.
So I would think, like, even if the government of Canada came down with a sweeping short-term rental rule, it would probably be based on population size, similar to what they did in BC, Steve, or if there's not other alternatives, they'd at least maybe acknowledge that. But that comes back to, maybe it's just like, listen, any investment you're making, even like Ravi, one thing that we've seen picked up, we have a lot of buyers that want to buy in condos built after November 2018, because they're not currently under rent control. And I just tell them, like, yeah, I get it, but this could change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If Doug Ford, someday this will change. So don't buy just on this. I can guarantee you this for maybe another, 18 months, I can guarantee. And then who knows? Yeah. Similar to you buying up there. It's like every purchase you make has some level of risk involved with it. And even if you couldn't short-term rental it, would it still make sense as an investment, or does that kind of completely wipe out the numbers?
So it would still make sense as an investment. And I mean, whenever you buy real estate, you're looking at two things. You're looking at the income, but you're also looking at the equity, right? And I mean, what we bought, it's certainly done very well since amidst market fall off. So I think, look, at the end of the day, there's the people who will look at reasons why, and there's the people who will look at reasons why not. And there's probably equal sort of reasons on both sides. My position is, look, take some risk, manage the risk, jump 2 feet in, and you won't regret the failure as long as you're capitalized, and you will celebrate the wins as long as you have guidance and models.
Yeah, but just knowing that it's not always rosy, right? And there's nothing really passive about real estate investing.
Oh God,
let alone physically what you have to do, but just how much time you spend thinking about it makes it not passive. Like, I think more than anything else, you're thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, but the people who do love buying pre-construction, for example, they really love it.
I know, they're obsessed with it. I know.
Let me buy another one. Let me just buy it. When I close it, I'll sell it. If I don't make a lot, if I make a little, I'm cool, right? And more power to them.
This came over my mind recently. Like, I own a few properties. I don't think I'm going to buy anything this year as an investment, but I was driving by, they just kind of roped off this area that was an old bar in the beaches. And I think actually Freed's behind it. It's where Murphy's Law used to be, right on that corner across from History. I think Freed's the developer. Anyways, I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, I haven't seen them launch that yet, but I'm like, I don't live too far away from that. And I was like, that would be fun to pick up a 1-bedroom in there. So my mind went there, and I was like, wait, why am I even saying that? Like, I don't know.
And what if that one bedroom's $1 million, right? That's the weird part of the whole thing, right? Because the builders will not build unless there's at least 22 to 23% margin, right? Period. Right. So Altus publicizes like the hard and soft costs related to construction. And just from a risk assessment perspective, the builder has to make at least 23% margin. Otherwise, they just won't build. And we have no inventory. And we already have limited.
Well, that's the thing. We've spent the first 40 minutes of this podcast talking about the fact that maybe a lot of people shouldn't be buying pre-construction. Well, Rav, in 10 years, if someone doesn't buy it, we get no new condos. And if levels of immigration are even close to what they are now, like that's not going to end well either. Like there's just no, from every side of this, the smartest people still, like, is there any way of solving this?
I think, unfortunately, Tom, we are going to be in an inventory crisis for the rest of your life, my life, and Steve's life in Toronto. And I think the kids that are growing up in Toronto may not be able to afford to buy a home in Toronto. So, you know, a lot of my millennial clients, they're saying, hey, can we pick up another property because we want to leave one to my daughter, one to my son. And I think that that's going to be a common trend, right? Like I have a good friend, Amy, she just sent me a picture of her doing a PDI with her son. And her son's 5 years old, right? She's like, I bought this condo because I want him to own something. And I have that conversation all the time. It's not doom and gloom, but it is Hong Kong, Paris, London, Tokyo, New York.
We gotta have Amy on the show. That's the Amy that I know too, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She'd be great for the show. Okay, I got a question for you. I saw this interview. I think it was CBC that did it, and they were talking about like same thing we're all talking about here. Okay, there's no perfect solution to this, but there was a solution that started happening in the 80s that fell away. That what if we brought this type of housing back, Steve? Before you say no, I'm going to say it.
Don't say it.
Co-op housing. It's affordable. You don't have a landlord. You own a share in the building. You know, like it's safe housing options for people. Now, I know maybe when they first came into Toronto, they were put in areas and it was lower income and things like that. But lower income people need housing. And it's not these pre-con projects that are going to give them the housing unless they're forced to by the government for the inclusionary zoning, right? It's how do we solve the other side of the market, not the luxury stuff, not the people making the average salary, the people that are having issues getting by. Is co-op not at least a reasonable like Steve, why are you so against that?
Do you need insurance? The answer to that question is obviously yes, of course you do. Whether you are a tenant, landlord, or homeowner, you need to insure your property and belongings. And when I insure my investment property, personally, I choose Square One. Square One is affordable online insurance for everyone. If you apply for your Square One insurance policy using the link in the description of the show notes, listeners of The Tom Storey Show can receive $20 off right now, simply by going to squareone.ca/The Tom Storey Show. Square One is no joke. I personally use Square One for my landlord policy on my investment condo. I picked Square One because they were easier to work with than other insurance companies. And when I had an issue with my previous policy coverage in relation to my Stratas coverage, Square One was the insurance company that came up with a solution for my insurance problem at an affordable rate. Online quotes take less than 5 minutes with Square One. Get your home insurance quote today at squareone.ca/The Tom Storey Show and save $20.
Co-op. A lot of the ways co-ops work here are actually more of a leasehold. They're not legit co-ops. So they are the property is leased very long term. So they're not legit co-ops. There are a few legit co-ops around me. Generally speaking, you're not financing them. So they're not a solution for most people.
They're harder to finance for sure. So you can credit unions there's a few credit unions in Toronto that will finance.
Every co-op I have sold, and I have sold only a handful, have all been cash buys. literally it's almost like a personal check handed over to some guy you meet at the co-op office, and like, okay, you get to live here now for a certain amount of time, or till
Well, you all own it together. That's the idea.
yes. Here's
And
the
your
other thing.
landlord can't sell it and kick you out.
No, but you would be amazed at how much control the cooperative has over you. For instance, in the co-op that I can think of one in particular that we have sold multiple units in. It, like, you have duty hours, right? You have to, for sure, do a certain amount of yard work.
But isn't that the whole idea? Isn't that the whole idea, that you're getting it at a lower price, you get security, it's more affordable, and you got to pitch in? That's the whole point of that's why.
But if you can't finance it and your neighbor doesn't pitch in, I mean, it's small version communism is basically what we're going to, right? You're going to have people that don't pull their weight, and to try and buy and sell those things is painful. If your goal is to buy it, live there till you die, and somehow you came up with the $500,000 or $600,000 cash that you need, because you're probably not going to finance it at anything under 10%. If you can do that, sure. Does it give you a safe place to live for 40 years? Probably. Is it realistic? I don't think so.
Okay, I think it's got a very utopian sort of theoretical value story, but I don't think it would work in Toronto. I think that there would be, like Steve said, a lot of inefficiencies. Some people pulling their weight, some people pulling more than their weight, and some people not, right? But a great idea to throw into the hat. I think the best idea, and this might be the opposite of communism, is capitalism. You know what? Give developers loans, get out of their way, let them make more homes for all these people. And while we're at it, let them make hospitals, let them make roads and schools. Because, guys, I'm waiting on an MRI till May 19th. You know, like, it's alarming what we're doing to this city through the misallocation of funds at the government level, right? And you know what? Everybody wants to charge more and then redistribute. When I say everybody, I mean Olivia, Rob, and Justin, right? And I don't think that that's really the best scenario for our city. I think it's really just poor allocation.
Totally agree. So we just had old Justin come out a couple of weeks ago and promised $2 billion to the provincial government. And to match the provincial government's investment, last time I checked, government didn't have any money. They just took mine. But so now we're $4 billion that is going to go towards rental, not affordable rentals, by the way, rentals for families. So these are going to be 3-bedroom units, apparently, in wherever the heck they're going to build it. But I would bet if you gave that same
money to developers,
I wouldn't give it to developers. I would not give it to developers, but I would definitely offer it to them at a lower interest rate. And then they can bring things to market faster, I would say, probably more efficiently. Because one thing that I know is going to happen whenever you have a government project, same thing that's just happened to our pipeline here in BC, as soon as the feds bought it, it's immediate. They bought it for like $40 billion. It's now $80 billion over budget or whatever the heck it is. And it's not done. And by the way, they're planning on selling it off as soon as it's complete for half of what they paid for it. Like, this business model is terrible. And it's because I think the government has nobody actually to answer to. They only have to make it to the next 4-year term. So I would love to see that $2 billion or $4 billion funded at, say, 2 or 3% interest to the developers, so they don't have to borrow at 9 and 10%, and then they cancel projects.
I think, Rav, sorry, Steve went on one of his rants, so I'm just trying to calculate all the points in my head. I think what you're trying to say there, Steve, was that, like, building rental housing and $4 billion, because that all came from Steve's taxes, is
I paid for
is that. Thank you, Steve, for building rental inventory for Canadians. It's still rental inventory. It's still rental inventory. Now, even if it's owned, purpose built, and you don't have a landlord, you know, they're not under rent control currently in Ontario, those buildings and all that kind of stuff. If that was reallocated at reasonable incentives to developers to build more ownership inventory, that would actually help things more than the rental side. Is that kind of what I'm getting from that?
I mean, I just don't think whether or not it's going to be ownership or it's going to be rental. Like maybe it's a big developer making all rentals. I just think that the private market is going to do those things better and more efficiently than the government will. I just don't see them constructing, because what they're going to do is they're going to hire out contractors. I have friends that are in the trades that work on these big public sites in the unions. And I have one friend I can think of in particular who left a union position because he was constantly being told to slow down. Like, hey man, you're going to do this work too fast. Like so he was like, I had to increase my data plan as soon as I got the union job because we were sitting around so much. I was scrolling on my phone. I was going over budget. Like, that's the problem you have with publicly funded construction is they're still going to private companies. And those companies are now knowing that they can make more dollars the longer they drag out the project. And that's not going to be the same result you're going to get with a private developer who's trying to make a profit.
So no cooperatives then?
Fuck cooperatives, Tom. They're terrible.
Whoa, Steve, have you ever sworn on the show?
I have. But that is... No, I just don't think... I think they're another one of those things that is a great idea. I just don't think they're really going to work or solve anything. If we could have, I mean, there's not even a title. You don't have a title, right? You have basically a promissory note that says, hey, you get to live within this unit and you have to cut the grass and rake the leaves. So I don't know.
And you can't finance it, or it's hard to finance.
It's hard to finance it. Yeah, there is.
I have never been able to finance one yet. Just for instance, like mobile homes, you can finance any mobile home built within the last 10 years. How many of those are there?
Right.
It's not realistic.
Also in Toronto, there is co-ownership buildings, which are different than cooperative buildings. It's a bit of confusion. Those you can finance with credit unions. I've sold a few of those before. And I will say, like, even for some of the co-ownership and cooperatives in the city, that means you can live in Rosedale for like 550 grand. Like that, it gets you in. So let's say this isn't about, let's say you have the money. Let's say you're not buying it to make money on it. You don't want it. You don't care if it goes up in value, but your family lives close and you just want to be there. That could give a good living situation to someone. There's some in the beaches, Ravi, that are like way cheaper than everything else, but it's because they're under this type of ownership. And I don't know, perhaps that's something that we have to look at. I want to discuss a report that came out from Royal LePage. So they put out these reports similar to what Remax does, Ravi, and this one is called the Royal LePage 2024 $1 Million Property Report. Okay, so I'm looking at this all for the first time here. I just wanted to get everyone's feedback. Okay, this is for all of Canada.
Can you hold this thought for one?
Jump in, Steve.
I just looked up the co-op that I was thinking about. These are 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,100 to 1,300 square foot units. The highest sale is $375,000.
Sounds like it's affordable housing to me. Then
it's
what's
affordable as all hell. It's great if you have $375,000, and if you don't have $375,000, you cannot finance them. There's no way they can be financed if those are the prices. Those are all cash buyers.
All right. Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
I tried to solve the housing issue and we just got shot down.
Okay. Get it right. We didn't fix it.
The Royal LePage 2024 $1 Million Property Report. So this is just kind of interesting data. On average, a $1 million property in Canada has 3.2 bedrooms, 2.1 bathrooms, while a $2 million property has 3.7 bedrooms and 2.6 bathrooms. That's Canada-wide. Obviously, Toronto and Vancouver are skewing those numbers for the entire country. Edmonton, not like this is a shocker, boasts the highest average square footage of all regions. You can get $1 million house in Edmonton, and on average, it'll be 2,700 square feet. And I'm guessing that's not including basement. While Vancouver is the lowest.
We would include our basements, by the way. We would include
You
our
guys
basements
would?
in this. This is going to be flawed data because we include our basements, so they don't.
We don't include basements in Toronto as square footage. In Vancouver, on average, $1 million gets you 900 square feet on average. Cities and greater regions of Toronto, Vancouver rank below national averages in square footage for, that's all kind of obvious. While Greater Montreal average on area boasts the home size of 460 size square feet larger than the national average. So you're getting more house in Montreal. Winnipeg and Halifax record the largest average home price size for $2 million properties. You're getting an average of 4,000 square feet. And this is interesting, 2/3 of Canadians, 64%, believe that $1 million is a reasonable budget to afford a home that meets their household needs. That figure is significantly lower in Ontario, where only 53% said that, and in BC, which 42% said that. That's probably the biggest number here. I guess not that they want to spend $1 million, but they believe that's a reasonable budget to get what they're looking for in Canada. 64% of Canadians. Also, I'm pretty sure 64% of Canadians own homes and the rest of them rent. Is there anything I said there that's not kind of already obvious and it's just being confirmed?
I would get totally stuck on the calculation for the home size because Tom, you've been to my place. Ravi, come on down, check it out.
Yeah.
But my home by Edmonton measurements would be 2,350 square feet. Right. So obviously, Tom, my house is a lot bigger than that. But if you don't include the basement, right. So I think I would love to see how that number gets skewed. And then what does $1 million get you in Vancouver? Well, it doesn't get you a detached home at all. So whatever your square footage is,
then you pay maintenance
it's a 2-bedroom
fees.
apartment.
Yeah. Okay. Enough about real estate for a moment. Rav, I wanted to ask you, I want to end this on a positive note. This is a show about real estate, but Steve brings me down and Rav's here today. So he's going to bring us back up and Rav, it's up to you how much you want to share, but I know you've gone through things in life that give you a different perspective and you can decide at what points you want to share. It's totally up to you, but just for people listening to this that are maybe going through a shitty time in their life or they feel like they're stuck, and this has nothing to do with real estate.
Yeah.
You've gone through things and you've come out the other side and you've had challenges. Is there advice that you give, anything that you'd want to share for our audience?
Yeah. So I think Tom's talking about in particular, when I was in my 20s, I had a very challenging situation related to my gut health. I had one of the documented absolute most difficult cases of something called ulcerative colitis. Underwent massive invasive surgery and came out on the other side of that to then in my 30s be diagnosed with cancer. And of recent, also dealing with some more autoimmune challenges. And, to put it lightly, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people get caught up with things that really and truly should not be worth the energy, the complaining, or the sense of disparity or are distraught that they're dealing with. When you are literally lying in a hospital bed, clinging to life, begging, whatever form of almighty or nature or the universe to just pull you out of that, when you get pulled out of that, you just smile every day. You start to realize like life is, number one, worth living, number two, exceptionally fragile, and number three, abundantly beautiful, right? And we get pissed off because of things like the weather or traffic or a difficult client in our business or, other things that are worth sort of, a blip in our life of being upset about. But when you can change something from have to get, meaning, oh, I have to drive to work, it's going to take me an hour, and instead say I get to, or I have to deal with this difficult client, but now you get to say I get to deal with this difficult client. We start to realize like it's a privilege to be alive and healthy. And I mean, I don't want to sound like a Hallmark card here, but the reality is, when they told me that I would most likely not live to 40, and that I'd be suffering with cancer at 35, my perspective at 44, literally living my best life, allows me a superpower. And that superpower is gratitude, right? And, Tom, Steve, myself, we all are building businesses, we're building families. You guys are building, as am I, content and on voice of authority and an audience. This is not something to really complain about by any sense of the word, and yet sometimes we get caught up in the dark side of the day, right? For me, I really snap out of that very often. For my birthday this year, I was in the emergency room. And I don't mean in a bed in the emergency room. I mean just lying on a stretcher overnight. And I said to Ange, my wife, I said, I'm having a rough day. And she said, I know. And then I said, but you know what? We'll get past this too. And she texted me back. She said, we will. Right? And, my mentors have taught me, as well as life has taught me, that if you can lean into the pain, it's a tremendous tool for growth and for lessons, right? Guys, that day where I spent lying down looking up at the ceiling of the hospital, it got me to a place where I don't say I should. I just don't say that. I got something to do, I just do it. Swoosh. You know what I mean? And I think when it's all said and done, I think a lot of people will say, I should have done this. I wish I did that. I'm sorry I didn't do this. And I intend to do that as little as possible. And if it's all done soon, or if it's all done at 120, which is now the new goal, right? I'm meeting some folks today at Fountain Life, which is Tony Robbins' company. 120 is the goal. I think my goal at the end is to look back and say, I did, as opposed to I could have or I should have.
So well said. There's nothing I can add to that. Like that was perfect and such a good way to end it off. Well, we're lucky to know you. I'm glad that we all get to know each other and get to talk a lot. And by the way, you mentioned a few times you have ownership in a restaurant downtown. Where should people be eating in King Street West, Ravi?
You can follow at Silent H on Instagram. It's great food, great DJs, great cocktails, great build out. It's a beautiful hospitality space at King and Brant. And I just want to say, we all love real estate, right? Like, I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah, there's hiccups, but like Toronto's great, real estate's great. And you know what? We delve deep on some of the headaches that we have, but it's a pretty great thing to own too, right?
Oh yeah, we're lucky that we can have these conversations, right? And I think perspective is obviously one of the most important things. I think that's a perfect way to wrap it. Steve, is there anything else you'd like to share with us here today?
No, I'm not going to screw this one up.
Okay. Rav, for people that listen today and want to connect with you more, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, probably at Ravi Singh Remax on all handles, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. That's probably the best. If you want to learn about what myself and my team do, it's Connexus, CONNEXUS Group. Connexus Group.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Like I said before, this was long overdue. Steve, this might be episode 99. We're almost at 100. I don't know for sure. I got to double double check, but we're
Are
getting
we
there.
counting bonuses or not?
We're
Bonuses?
counting bonuses episodes because they were still episodes. So I think we're getting close. Rav, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Steve, also nice to see you, I guess. Listeners, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already, and we will see you next week. Bye.